So hi, I'm Franz Pear with Skyline. Today we're going to be building cool word lists, and we're going to walk through how you can use cool to scrape websites for possible password candidates, and then actually use those to go ahead and crack some passwords. So let's start first with a quick overview of what is cool. So cool is the custom word list generator, CeWL, and you can use cool to scrape a web page and create a list of words on that page to use as password candidates. So what does that mean? Well, basically, when you are trying to crack a password, it's possible that you might have an understanding of some interests of the person that you are, or the group of people that you're trying to target. So as an example, maybe you've got some a data breach from NASA, and maybe you need to find some, you think there's probably gonna be some space themed passwords there. What you want to do is be able to generate a giant list of space related passwords and use those as kind of your guesses. And so what cool does is it helps you generate that list. And so if you have a website, let's just say it's a NASA website with a list of all the different Apollo missions, maybe it's a list of asteroids or satellite names, you can use that website and you can point cool at that website. Cool will visit those pages, grab the words on those pages, generate this word list that you can then use to feed that through Hashcat and decrypt some passwords. So that's how that works. It's really helpful when you're trying to crack some passwords, maybe RockU and some of those other common default password word lists. They're not doing the job. You can build a targeted one using cool. All right. So to install cool, very quick and easy. It's a single one line apt-get install cool. This works on any Linux, like apt-based systems. And as well, it comes pre-installed in Kali Linux. So if you already have Kali installed, it's a very quick and easy one-liner. Or actually, if you already have Kali installed, you don't have to go through this one line. You can skip that. But if you don't have Kali and you have an apt-based Linux system, it's a quick one-liner to get it installed. And to use cool, also very, very simple. Just type in cool, CeWL, the URL of the page that you want to scrape, and then optionally, if you want to save this to a file rather than having it print on the screen, you can use the -W option and then put the file path for where you want to store those words. And that's it. Very, very simple. Now, a common option that you might want to consider using is the -D option. -D stands for depth. That is basically how far cool will go when following links on the web page. And so by default, the depth is 2, which means that when you give cool the URL, it's going to go to every single link on that URL, on the web page for that URL, and visit those pages. And then it's going to subsequently go to every single link on those pages and visit them too. And it's going to go to all those pages to generate the list. Now, the reason why I recommend potentially wanting to change the depth is because you could see how this might end up taking a lot of time, right? If it's going through every single URL on that page and then visiting those pages and then every single URL on those pages, is going to take a while if there's a lot of hyperlinks on those pages. So if you happen to already have all the words that you want on a web page to begin with, you can set -D to 0, and that's going to make it so that cool doesn't visit any of the links on the page, and it's going to save you a lot of time. It's going to be way, way faster if you do it that way. All right, so now that we know how to run cool, there's an intermediary step between taking those words and then generating possible passwords. I recommend 2 things to help clean your cool output, because just keep in mind, it's going through and it's getting every single word on that page. There's going to be some red herrings in there, right? Like the words like the, or maybe you have a copyright notice at the bottom of the page, or like the name of the website that you're on. A lot of information that is not necessary. And depending on your situation, you might want to use some filters to help just cut down on that noise. And so my big common recommendation, if you are pulling a Wikipedia page, which might be pretty common because Wikipedia has just a bunch of lists of things, I use this option, which is searching for RFT $. For some reason, I don't see it when I go onto those web pages, but when Cool visits those Wikipedia pages, any Wikipedia references, like a reference to another Wikipedia page, you will see the name of that page followed by RFT. And so this rule searches for those, and then the -v at the end of this egrep command will do the opposite of that. So it's going to search for everything that ends in RFT and then just get rid of those. And then the second one I recommend is if you happen to know that you want some longer words, you can also filter based on word length. So this egrep command is going to search for and only limit your results to words that are 6 characters or longer. And I just chose 6 here for an example. If you want that to be a different number, you just plug in a different number. If you want it to be 4 instead of 6, you put in 4. If you want it to be 8 instead of 6, you put in 8. So that's very easily customizable. But if you can filter some of your output and clean it up a little bit, it can help speed things up, because the next step is going to generate your password list here. So keep in mind that Cool by itself is not generating possible passwords. It's only giving you words, not passwords. And the reason why I say this is because most passwords aren't just a random English word. Typically, people are required to, or they just do it by human nature, adding numbers or special characters to those words. And so what we need to do is we need to take a word, and in this case, I've got Pokemon here. We need to take that word and we need to mutate it. We need to make different versions of that word, which could potentially be a password. So we need to do things like add special characters, add numbers to that word, and that is going to increase the likelihood that we actually have something which is a real password. Because if you only search for the word Pokemon, you might not get very many matches for passwords, but you add in some characters, some numbers, your odds go up much, much more. And so the way that we are going to do this is we're going to use Hashcat. Now, Hashcat has the ability to take in a list of your words, and you can provide it with some rules, and those rules are going to dictate the type of mutations you want to do. And so I'm going to end up using one of the default rules for Hashcat that comes pre-installed on Kali Linux. You can see here at the bottom of the screen here, and I might need to move myself out of frame so you can see the full command there. But we're going to run Hashcat. We're going to specify the rule with the -r option, and then we're going to give it the words that we got from Cool. So in this example, I've got a.txt. That's where I saved all of the words from Cool. And then what we're going to do is we're going to save all of those possible passwords into this file called pass.txt. And don't worry if you didn't catch that. We're gonna go over it again in the demo. Another thing before I move on to the next slide is that this best 64, these are like the best 64 rules, quote unquote, that come pre-installed with Kali Linux. There is, you can get other rules online, such as one rule to rule them all. That's a pretty popular one that people use as well. Those have more extensive rules, and they will give you even more passwords and increase your odds even more. Now, there is a trade-off, which is the more mutations you have, the more possible passwords you have, the longer it's going to take to guess those. And so as you increase the number of permutations, the number of mutations, you're also increasing the amount of time it's going to take to guess those passwords. So I highly recommend starting with the simple rule first. So you could use this best 64 rule. If that doesn't do the trick, then go to the more comprehensive ones, because otherwise you might end up spending a lot of time with those super comprehensive those super comprehensive rules when they aren't even necessary. All right, so now that we have our word list, all you have to do is start cracking them. So in this example, I'm using Hashcat. You could use other password cracking tools like John the Ripper. I use Hashcat. It's the one that I'm most familiar with, but just keep in mind, that's not the tool you have to use. You can definitely use other tools. And the command I've got here, we've got hashcat, hashes.txt, -m is specifying the type of password hash that we're going to be cracking. I believe the 0 option is for MD5. And then -a is the attack mode, and the A0 is going to be the attack mode for Wordlist. So since we used Hashcat in the earlier slide to generate our possible passwords, we're going to use that list of possible passwords, and we're going to send it to Hashcat now and say, hey, for real this time, go and take those possible passwords and actually try them. So the previous slide, it didn't actually try the passwords. It just generated the list of possible passwords that we want to try. This command is actually going and trying them and see if they work. All right. So I've probably talked way more than I needed to about how all this is going to work in theory. Let's actually go and put this to practice. And so I'm going to jump over here to my Kali Linux machine, and I am going to pull up one of our practice challenges. And so I've got my Firefox over here with one of these challenges. And what I can see is that I've got a scenario where we've got some hackers' passwords. They're all based on Pokemon. And we've got these 5 hashes over here. So we've got our 5 password hashes, and we've got a theme. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy these password hashes, and I'm going to go to my my terminal over here, and I am going to paste this into a text document that I'm going to call hashes.txt. So I'm going to paste this right in here. So we've got that. And these are the hashes that we need to crack. From here, we actually need to go and get those list of Pokemon. So going to go back to Firefox and just do a quick Google search. So what if I just go and I search for list of Pokemon, Wikipedia. I like using Wikipedia lists because they're generally pretty clean. If you can't get a list that you want directly on Wikipedia, you can take out the Wikipedia, look for other sources. But Wikipedia is usually pretty nice because other sources might do things like have a lot of images, which the image has the word that you want and not like the text itself. So that's not going to work. Or maybe they've got some like weird pop-ups or whatnot. So I generally use Wikipedia as the simple way to do it. And I can see here that there's a ton of Pokemon that we have listed. So what I'm going to do is just copy this URL, and I'm going to go back to my terminal. So we're back in the terminal. And if you remember, what I said you have to do with cool is that you type in cool and you provide the URL, which I did just then. And I'm going to use a -d option because you all probably don't want to be waiting here all day as this tool goes through every single link on that page and then subsequently every single link on those pages. So we're going to speed this up. We're going to do depth 0. And we can do this because we know that all of the Pokemon that we want are on that initial page. So there's actually no reason to have cool click on every single link here. Like every single Pokemon here, apparently they all have their own Wikipedia page. So this is going to take forever if we let cool go and follow those URLs. So we are actually just going to not do any of that. And I'm going to save this into a file that I'm going to call words.txt. And so there we go. It ran. Because I gave it depth 0, it was super quick. So it did it basically immediately. And if I just pop this open, if I just open words.txt, you can see here we got close to 3,000 words on this Wikipedia page. And hopefully we can like visually identify some actual Pokemon in here. So if I go through, let me just search for like Pikachu. All right. There we go. Pikachu's in there. So at least we know that like at least one of them is in there. So we can we can save ourselves some time there and verify that at least one's in there. So we didn't botch it completely right off the bat. So that's cool. So we've got our words. The next step is to do our filtering. So I pulled this from Wikipedia, and I mentioned that Wikipedia has a tendency to add, to have these RFTs. So you can see Arbok RFT, Article RFT, Kotaku RFT. So these are all the links to other Wikipedia pages. And I think if we get rid of those, this can reduce the number of passwords that we're going to try to guess, because I highly doubt that people are going to have a Pokemon name RFT as their password. So let's go, and what we're going to do is I'm going to cat out the words.txt. I'm going to pass this to egrep, which will do our search, and then I'm going to search for RFT $. So this is going to search for everything that ends in RFT, and then I'm going to do -v, which is the opposite, because I don't want the words that end in RFT. I want everything that doesn't end in RFT, and that's why I'm doing the -v over here. And if I do that, I can do a word count on that. I can see that we trimmed it a little bit. We went from like 3,000 to like 2870-ish. So it eliminated some things. Probably doesn't help us too much for today's example, but for some other more busier pages, this might actually cut down a little bit more substantially for you. And I am going to save this into clean.txt. So now if we go into our clean.txt, we can see that's the whole list in there. Hopefully nothing ends in RFT. It does not. And so we are now on to our third stage. So we've got our cleaned list of words. Let's get a list of possible passwords. Not just words, we want passwords. And so I'm going to use hashcat, and I'm going to do -r to specify the rule that I want to use to do the mutations here. And there is the default word list of rules in user share hashcat rules, and then I'm going to use the base the best 64 rule. And now I need to specify the words that I've got. So that's clean.txt, and then I'm going to specify my output, and that's going to be pass.txt. So when I run this command, hashcat is going to go through my list of clean words. It's going to try to mutate them using this best 64 rule, and it's going to take those mutated passwords and save them in a file called pass.txt. And so if I hit enter, it goes ahead and it does that. And all right, let's go and take a look at our pass.txt. Oops. Oh, looks like it didn't work. What'd I miss? Oh, I forgot the std out option. That is letting hashcat know that we're not trying to actually go through and crack passwords. We just want it to go through the rules and save it to standard out. And now, if we look at pass.txt, here we go. So we went from what was the original one? Like almost close to 3,000 lines, and now we are at 220,000 lines. So you can see how we're really going and getting a lot of different mutations of those words. And this is also why filtering can be really important, because when you put them through those rules, you're going to get like way more potential passwords, and that can super increase the amount of time it's going to take to guess those passwords. And keep in mind, I'm only using the default rule, the best 64 rule, which is like the simple one, right? Like there are rules, like the one rule to rule them all. I think that has several thousand rules in it. And so you can imagine if you got several thousand rules instead of 64, we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of passwords. We're talking about like tens, if not millions of, tens, if not hundreds of millions of potential passwords. Depending on how quick your computer is going to be, it's going to take a long time to get through those. So generally, you want to filter out the words as much as you can, and you want to use the easy rules before you start going really crazy with that, because again, it's just going to take way more time the more rules that you add to this. So let's go ahead and start cracking them. Now, keep in mind, when we build challenges for you to go through, we're very, very much aware of the fact that you all need to be able to run this on regular hardware, like not some supercomputer. So we keep that in mind. That means that we don't expect that you will need to get super, super crazy with this. If you have a nice, clean word list, and then you got these rules, you should be good to go for the most part. Now, keep in mind that there are going to be some harder challenges out there, password cracking challenges, where you need to get a little bit more creative with the rules. We want to add some difficulty there. But in terms of getting like 90% of the passwords in like a CTF event, just go with the standard stuff first, and then move your way up to the harder stuff. And if you find that it's taking a lot of time, there's 2 ways to optimize. Clean out your word list better, and also make sure that the rules that you're using are reasonable and you're not overkill. So keep those 2 things in mind. Now, time for the fun part, right? Now we actually want to crack them. So I'm going to go back to hashcat. So I've got my hashcat here. And then we've got our hashes.txt from the very beginning, right? When I went, grabbed those hashed passwords, we saved them in hashes.txt, and we're going to do -m0 for an MD5 attack. And we are going to use our password list here. And if I run this, did I cheat a little bit? I think I might have cheated. All right. Let me go delete, because I cracked these earlier. So I'm just going to go and delete my my previous memory of cracking those passwords. And we're going to run it again. And you can see here that took about 4 seconds. So it went through all of the passwords in 4 seconds. These are the 5 passwords that we just cracked. So if I copy this, I go back to our browser, I paste it in here. And also, always make sure that you are submitting the correct password for the correct password hash. If they're not in the same order, you're going to get it wrong. So this is the password hash for B8824, which is not the first password here. That's this password here. So I need to submit it over there. Hashcat is going to show you the passwords in the order that it cracks the passwords. That is not the same order that you gave Hashcat those passwords. So keep that in mind, because it's very easy to make that mistake and miss points unnecessarily. The next password we've got here is for the 83B. So I'm going to look for 83B. That's over here, and I'll paste it in here, and I've got that marked as correct. Now, for these passwords, it turns out that we probably didn't need to use that set of rules, because just looking at the cracked passwords, these are just all lowercase. I can do a quick check. I can see if by chance the original list of words that we got had these lowercase passwords. Maybe it only had them with like the capitalization. So if I just search over here, because this search is going to be case sensitive. Oh, okay. So yeah, it turns out we actually did need those rules, because the words from Wikipedia, it had all of the names capitalized, but the actual password was the name of the Pokemon not capitalized, all lowercase. So the rules that we gave it, the best 64, one of those rules must have taken the words and made them lowercase and used those, and that's what actually allowed us to crack these passwords. So yeah, that it's very much needed to take the output from cool and then run it through these rules to generate your password candidates before you try to crack them with Hashcat, because otherwise you're likely not gonna get good matches. Those rules are really gonna help you. But that's the quick and easy of how to set this all up with Cool and Hashcat. And you can see that, with a general theme, the theme here being Pokemon, we can go online, do a quick Google search, get a Wikipedia page, use Cool, hit that Wikipedia page, get the words from that page, plug that into Hashcat, and crack those passwords.